Hey, how you doing? Today, I thought I'd stop by Panera Bread and get some of this broccoli and cheddar mac and cheese. I know they have good broccoli and cheddar soup and all. Can't go wrong if you add it to the mac and cheese. Oh, yeah. Well, that looks good. And, of course, I got my lemonade. Yeah. Pretty good. So I was thinking today about when I lived down there in Virginia Beach. And, of course, that whole area is right along the Chesapeake Bay. So I used to go crabbing quite a bit. It would be a weekend, and I would just decide, you know, on a Saturday or something to go catch some crabs, for that evening. So normally, when I would decide to do that, in the morning, maybe around 10 or something in the morning, I would go to the local food line grocery store and get some chicken necks. Excellent for crab bait because they love chicken necks. So what I would do is go down, and you could get like a dozen chicken necks for like $1 or something, really cheap. And then I would take them and sit them out in the sun until I decided to go crabbing. Because when you sit them out in the sun, they really start to smell, and the crabs can sense that. So the way I figured out to sit them out in the sun, like on my sidewalk, going to my house, was I made the mistake one time early on, and I left the chicken necks in the trunk of my car. Well, then I, later on in the afternoon, decided I wasn't going to go crabbing. And of course, I forgot that the chicken necks were in the car. And I went out the next day to get in the car to go somewhere. Wow. You do not want to let chicken necks in the trunk of your car in the heat, because they really start to smell bad. And it probably took me a week or more of driving around with the windows open and stuff to get rid of that smell from those chicken necks. Really bad smell. So then I started, as soon as I got home from the grocery store, get the chicken necks out of my trunk and sit them over on the sidewalk. Don't let them in the car. So then what I would normally do is, it might have been 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and there was a lot of area that you could go crabbing down there because there's a lot of backwater stuff. So you didn't need much to go crabbing. A cooler and a net. That's about it. A ball of twine. I always kept a ball of twine in the trunk of the car. So I would drive to one of my spots that I'd go crabbing, cut a couple lengths of the twine on one end, tie the chicken neck, and then the other end of it I would tie to my belt hoops. So tying the lines to your belt hoop, and I would tie 5 or 6 of the strings on different belt hoops. Then as you're wading out into the water, because I would wade out into the water maybe waist deep, just so that my belt hoops were below the water line. And then you would just throw the chicken, each piece, different directions, like a star pattern. And each line was, 15 or 20 feet. So you just fling them out there. They would drop down into the water. The weight of the chicken neck, it would sink down to the bottom where the crabs are looking for food. And you would be able to tell because the crabs would pull. You would feel it tugging on your belt hoop. That's how you would know that you got a crab on that string. So whichever string you felt it pulling on, you would just slowly and steadily pull that string in until you got the crab up toward the surface, because you can only see in that water 5 or 6 inches. It's pretty mucky. But I'd have my net in the one hand and I would just pull them in slowly. Once you got them to where you could see them just below the surface, scoop them up with the net. And then you had your cooler that you brought with you, sitting just over there on the bank out of the water. Take them, put them in the cooler, store them until you're ready to go home. Now, I would dip the cooler down in the water to where it was 5 or 6 inches of water in the cooler. That way, they're just like live well. It's just water in the cooler and they stay alive. And then you just continue to do that until you got a couple dozen or whatever. it would only take maybe hour, hour and a half, something like that. Catch a couple dozen crabs. Now, you can only keep certain size, like the males that are, say, 6 inches across, tips of the shell. So if you catch anything other than that, yeah, you just jiggle around on the bait and they'll just swim off and throw the chicken out again, catch a different one. During the summer, though, one year, my younger brother came down there to stay with me for a while. So I thought, oh yeah, that'll be fun. Take him crabbing with me, He's never been crabbing, so it'll be a good experience. And it worked out pretty good, too, because then as I was pulling the lines in, I had him there with me, and he would net the crabs up and take them back to the cooler. Worked out pretty well. It was going along pretty good, and you can tell when you have a pretty good sized crab on the line, because they tend to fight you, like they pull away from you. So I had this one crab that I was getting in pretty close, and my brother was standing here beside me, and I told him, oh yeah, this is a good sized crab. I can tell, by how hard it's pulling. Getting him up toward the surface more and more. And all of a sudden, my brother starts, like, moving around and jumping in the water and stuff. And I was like, don't make a lot of movement because you're going to scare the crab off. And then I'm pulling the crab in closer and closer, and he's moving around more and more, and he's going like, ouch, ouch. And all of a sudden, he screams louder, like a loud ouch, and started heading out of the water. I'm thinking to myself, what in the hell is he doing, Well, there was jellyfish in the water, and I told him when we were going out there, as you see any jellyfish getting near you, just take your hand and push the water and get them away from you. He obviously didn't see that one, because when I got over to the beach to see what he was doing, he had a big red mark on his side from the jellyfish. But after that, he was more careful to keep an eye out, make sure there was nothing around him floating in the water. So, once we got back in the water, then we finished catching however many we wanted, if it was 2 dozen or whatever. Took them back to the house and cooked them up. So when we got back, I just took them out to the backyard. I had a hose out there. So you just dump the creek water off in the yard. Take a garden hose and hose them off and everything. Get them cleaned up. And then I had a grill outside in the yard. And I just took a big pot and, put the water and stuff in there. Some vinegar, Old Bay, can or two of beer. Let that boil. And then normally we would have, some corn on the cob and stuff along with that. And then you have your butter, of course, dip the crabs in the butter and everything, and have a couple beers with them and sit around in the yard during the evening and eat the crabs and stuff. Good way to spend a summertime day. Crabs and beer. Can't beat that. But that's about it for that mac and cheese. Pretty tasty too. So until the next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you later.